Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to LogPoint demo of SIEM and UEBA. I see a lot of attendees have joined already, and we can kickstart now. If you have any questions, just a housekeeping note here. There is a Q&A session, and there is a chat window available for you as well. Please continue to ask your questions. If you need me to go over any of the slides or repeat what I was talking about, feel free to ask me and I will help you out. And I believe everybody should be able to see my screen. Myself, Nilesh Mapara, I am sales engineer based out of UK, looking after UK and Ireland business for LogPoint. And I'm here to take you through a little bit of journey with SIEM, UEBA, and introduction to LogPoint. At LogPoint, we take really high pride in our core values. At LogPoint, we believe that a solution should be intuitive, it should be scalable, and it should be predictable. Now, in today's extremely unpredictable world, being predictable is good. Whether it's technically or commercially, we need to be predictable. Our customers need to know both ways, commercially and technically, what to expect. As our customers grow, their networks grow, they decide to move into cloud, they decide to acquire another business, we are able to grow organically alongside our customers. And our solution is extremely intuitive. Throughout my demo and my presentation, you will see that these three core values are over and over emphasized within the solution of LogPoint. Some of our customers and why they needed us. We look at the very top, the customer outcome dictates why they needed us. In different silos, you'll find big names that you are familiar with. Big manufacturing, universities, hospitals, financial organizations, they all need a SIEM. And we will go through a little bit of what SIEM is, what SIEM does, how you can make it better. I heard one of my seniors tell, and I quite liked that analogy that he gave me, was we all boil with water. And what we do after we finish boiling matters. With all SIEM solutions, it is very true. A SIEM solution is only as good as the data you feed it, the log files that you feed it. If you have 5 locations and you only feed 4 locations data to the SIEM, it will never know about the 5th location. If you feed it, then what it can do, whether it's correlation, whether it's UEBA, whether it's being able to search and analyze those logs, matters. And I will show you this, how LogPoint brings it all together for you. At LogPoint, we believe in very simple licensing. This also sets us apart from everybody else that is out in this field. Our licensing is very simple and very straightforward. What you see on the screen, everything bar those 3 yellow boxes is included in your license. So if you look at whether it's GDPR compliance, PCI compliance, you're looking at data growth handling, you're looking at IT ops, you're looking at cyber essentials, it's all included in your core license. The 3 bits that are not included, and this is a theme that will continue in following slides as well. The 3 bits that are not included are UEBA, SAP, and ops monitoring. And I will explain why not. UEBA is user and entity behavior analytics. This is about analyzing behavior over a period of time and reporting on anomalies. Not every customer is interested in it, so we kept it as an additional license. The ERP software, SAP, not every customer has it, even though 77% of world's financial traffic hits one or the other SAP platform. In some time in its life cycle, Not every customer will actually use it, so we've kept it as an additional license. Ops monitoring is our way of telling you, Mr. Customer, you enjoy troubleshooting, you enjoy looking at the results that LogPoint can give you, but the maintenance part of it, we can take it off your hands. Our team will make sure it's got enough resources, it's got latest patches and updates. You continue to do the troubleshooting part of it. Our support team will look after your deployment of LogPoint. Now, these three parts, we've obviously kept it separate because not every customer would want it. But everything other than those three yellow boxes that you see on your screen is included in your base license. We will touch the licensing, the architecture, how LogPoint comes together in following slides. Any questions? No, none that I can see. Well, we'll move on from here to understand what SIEMs can do. What are the known issues that we face? How does LogPoint solution differ and help? First and the foremost with any SIEM solution is being able to ingest log files. When you talk about log files, you talk about volume, a volume that is in one direction. It's rising. No matter which organization you pick, the log volume, the data volume keeps on rising. There are SIEM solutions available that charge you per gigabyte, or EPS is the term, events per second. At LogPoint, we've addressed the solution by giving you a flat licensing. Flat licensing means you tell us how many nodes will send us the traffic. Irrespective of the volume, you only pay by the number of nodes. And that's a game changer in our industry. We're able to charge by the number of nodes sending us the traffic. Now imagine there's a new project is starting. They are going to deploy 15 more servers. You will be able to budget and predict the costs to be able to monitor that traffic coming in, additional traffic. Because you know it's only for 15 additional nodes, not for the volume of traffic coming in. In my first slide, we talked about predictability. Here it is. Our flat licensing helps you predict. Year on year, your budgeting is predicted well. You know what you will be spending. Once you have the centralized SIEM, you're able to apply UEBA, the user and behavior analytics. Now, user and behavior analytics is different to your standard correlation. You take a SIEM, you look at it right now, you correlate it with current data, and you do correlation. So the behavioral analytics goes into the history. So look at an entity over the number of weeks, months, years, and if something is out of the ordinary, it will alert us. In order for us to tell you what is abnormal, we have to first define the normal. And that's what we do with our UEBA. We take the traffic, we read, we understand, we create a timeline, a trend of behavior. If that trend is broken, we alert. When you're correlating data, and there are some correlation examples coming up as well, which we will talk about in a short while, but when you're correlating data, you need to be able to correlate it across multiple sources. At LogPoint, we use common taxonomy. What does that mean? It's basically, if I go into LogPoint solution and search for a device IP, that device IP will go and search through all the logs. Because we are using the common language for these log files, we'll look for firewall logs, switch logs, AD logs, threat intelligence logs, and give you information across the entire network log sources for that one particular IP address. You are able to correlate it much, much quicker. We can create timelines so you know that between 1 a.m. and 2 a.m., this is what happened. We also integrate with industry-leading solutions for alerting and response solutions. We can start sending our alerts into their system so that they can take necessary remediative action. When you look at LogPoint, how it comes together, we're talking about on the top, collection, detection, investigation, and response. But when you look at its architecture, what it does, we have a few main points. Let me just quickly move this slide over. And once again, for clarity purposes, we have kept our core license in that yellow box that you see on your screen, the core SIEM. Your core license includes all that. At the bottom, you will see the 3 additional licenses, and I'll cover those as well in a minute. But how does LogPoint operate? From multiple sources, we will receive log files, or we have fetchers that will go out and collect the log files. That's our first step, collect. Once we collect, we do apply to it normalization. Now, this normalization means we're applying the common taxonomy. You're applying the common language to that log file. Straight out of the box, we support nearly 500 input sources, log sources, that we understand their logs and we can convert them into common taxonomy. We call it normalizing it, normalizing. Once we have these normalized files with correct label, correct information, now we look for contextual information. That's enriching. Give you an example, threat intelligence. One of your machine in your network is talking to a known command and control server. We will add that information onto the log. This information did not exist in the original log, and we added it on. That's why enriching. We are putting contextual information into the log file. Once we have enriched this log, time to store it. And again, LogPoint wants to help you out here. We have different routing options for your storage. One option, you store all your logs in a highly expensive, highly accessible SSD storage for first 30 days. All your logs are available, quick access, SSD storage for first 30 days. At the end of the 30 days, it moves to more economical, slower access storage for the next 6 months, and even slower storage for further 6 months, and then it gets discarded. With our experience, we have learned that if you don't use your logs in first 30 days, you're keeping it for compliance purposes only. You could choose, you'll keep Windows Server logs in one place, printer logs in another place, firewall logs in another place, infrastructure logs in another place, and then apply retention policies to those logs. We can do that as well. There is a slide coming up, next one, which will talk about the tiered storage, how you can apply it across the board to different storage repositories. And this analogy of collector, storage, and analytics will continue in the next few slides as well. Once we have now these normalized and enriched logs that are stored in the correct location, we can start applying intelligence of searching, correlation, investigation, and response. That's how your core SIEM works. And in your core, in your base license, that yellow box, everything is included. And I will explain our architecture and how we can grow with your organization without any additional license charges to you. And let me explain the external factors or the additional licenses to this as well. We talked about the UEBA, user and behavior analytics. Also LogPoint for SAP. One thing that's new here is LogPoint Director. LogPoint Director is aimed at our MSSP partners or for the customers who have extremely distributed environments. You have 50 locations across the world. You want to collect, timestamp, and store everything locally. do not want that local log to travel up to you for time difference problems, for storage, or country-related regulations and legislations. You can have multiple log points installed, and then you can have a manager of managers, log point director, that will control all the log points. You can co-manage it, single manage it, and see everything in a single pane of glass view. That's LogPoint Director. And guys, if you have any questions at any point, feel free. There's a Q&A session. There's a chat window. Please feel free to pop your questions. I will do my best to answer them as we go along. What we looked at right now, in the previous one, we were talking about the collection process, what we do up to the storage. So if you look at this, in the collector window, we collect, normalize, enrich, and route the traffic for storage. And that's what this is for. From a log source, we use either collectors or fetchers. We receive the logs, or we go and fetch the logs, tone it, and then we normalize these logs. We enrich these logs and send them to correct storage. And I promised you there will be a tiered storage slide. Here it is. You can choose to keep all the same type of data we were talking about. We will keep all the Windows logs in one, Linux logs in one, infrastructure logs in one, and you want to keep all the user logs in one. And then you can apply to each storage a full RBAC, role-based access control. So a user, or you can change this to give you a much simpler example. You have 3 offices, Paris, London, and Copenhagen. You have 3 log points installed in 3 locations, and their data is stored locally for country-specific legislations, and only the local admins can access the local data. They have no access. The admin in London has no access to data in Copenhagen or data in Paris. You can give them the full RBAC control on that data itself. We also have a data privacy mode, which we will be covering in next few slides, and I will come to it after we've gone over the correlation and UEBA. But it allows you to be completely hardware agnostic, to store the data where you prefer. You could apply the retention policies as governed by your security policy, how long you want to keep the data. We want to move on, and I know some of you have been in this industry for a very long time, and you laugh at my slides because they are very basic. But some of us have not been in the SIEM industry long enough or want to understand how SIEM works. So I have taken it back absolute to 0, and let's build up from there. What is correlation? I'm going to give you an example of 2 log files. Your door entry system said, Bob never entered the building. And your Windows AD said, without any VPN, and this is very important, without any VPN, Bob logged onto his desktop PC, first attempt, no errors. Right? So there are 2 log files, completely separate sources. They come into LogPoint. A correlation, imagine these 2 log files on their own merit. Do not put them together. Imagine them on their own merit. Bob never entered the building. Who cares? It's an information only. A user doesn't come in, could be PTO, could not be well, could be anything. User did not come into building. It's not an alert. It's just an information. A user logs on to their desktop PC on first attempt, no password errors, no account lockout. Again, information only. This is not an alert. But when you put the 2 together, the correlation suddenly makes it a huge problem. Bob never entered the building without any VPN. He logged onto his desktop PC. How? That's your correlation. Very basic, taking it back to absolute basic on how we do it, right? It's about correlating information from multiple sources. In your day-to-day life, in your office, you will be touching multiple sources. When you log in to your Office 365, when you log into your Teams, when you go ahead and you access certain files in a shared drive, you log on to VPN, you print a document, you go in and out of door systems, you are generating these logs. You need a system that can go ahead and correlate that information to you, to one single user. And that's what correlation is. Now, if we were to change this from correlation to UEBA, a correlation happened for the same day. One day Bob doesn't enter the building, that day he logged in. That's a correlation. UEBA is about learning behavior. A particular user, how he or she behaves over the number of days, weeks, and years, and suddenly if they go out of line, if they do something that's not ordinary for them or their colleagues, what's happening then? And the explanation is not just saying that there is a problem, also explaining to you what it could mean. You look at this one, August 18th, between 8 and 9 p.m. It was very unusual that Henry Ford had failed access attempts to a shared drive, having only had 2 days with failed attempts to the shared device. Now, that's a very specific situation. Henry Ford accesses this network shared drive. Over the last few weeks, months, he has only had 2. But this time, he has had too many, more than his usual. And then we explain, when a user who rarely ever fails access attempt on a particular shared device has uncharacteristic access failure, this may indicate a compromised account. Somebody is trying to hack his account. We give you that explanation. Not only we found this to be out of ordinary, but why we think it's out of ordinary and what could be the reason for it. I've got 3 or 4 examples of UEBA because it just puts into perspective things that we don't think about. For an example, your camera system always reports to one server, and suddenly now it's started to talk to North Korea. That should not happen. For last weeks, months, and years, your camera system is only talking to your server, and suddenly now it has initiated connection with an IP address in North Korea. That's an alert. Finding, or not even North Korea, it started talking to a totally different IP address, out of the ordinary. Define the normal, define the abnormal. Give you another example. Now, Henry Ford, we love Henry Ford, and he's in all our examples. He sent 1.31 gigabyte in an hour, in 1 hour, using Post, which is uploading stuff to sites like Dropbox. And that's significantly higher. We show you what is the average for Henry Ford, which is 820 KB. Highest he has ever been is nearly 30 meg. His colleagues, it's been 2.3 KB, and highest was 10 meg plus, or 11 meg, let's put it. But this 1.31 gig, that's very high compared to them. When a user sends an unusually large amount of data using a particular method, this may indicate data theft. Maybe he's leaving. He's copy-pasting all his project files into Dropbox or his emails. Suddenly, you start running a search. You normally go in, you're based out of Copenhagen, and you're looking for all the deals in Denmark. Fantastic. In your CRM software. But suddenly, you log in and you see, I want every single deal that we ever had across the globe. That's out of the ordinary. And we will start recording that kind of behavior. If you look at this, again, unless you have in a standard SIEM multiple alerts set for each and every user based on their working and behavior pattern, you cannot catch things like this. Normally, Henry Ford logs in around 1 p.m. to 10 p.m. He's a shift worker. But suddenly, he logs in at 7:30 a.m. unless you have specific shift-related alert set for him, you would not pick this. And that's what UEBA is quite capable and powerful for, is baselining and creating a trend for a particular entity or a user and picking the behavior that doesn't fit the trend. And the last one for UEBA is finding out longer than normal to perform a take action. This is project. When he's logging onto a project file, he is logging in more often than not. I explained that CRM idea that somebody logged onto CRM, copy-pasted everything from across the globe and took it. To say, on an average, he does the take action 2.8 times an hour. Highest he's done 9 times an hour. His colleagues have done maximum of 4.1 and average of 4.1 and maximum of 6.64. Take actions. Suddenly these are 60 an hour. And if you look at it, when a user takes data from projects an unusually large number of times, that means it could be staged for exfiltration. Now you've put all this together. He's uploading 1.31 gig, he's logging in at wrong times, he is logging into the project and performing take actions multiple times. You start putting it all together, his threat score goes higher and higher and higher. When we come to our product itself, and I will show you how you can look at UEBA and how we present this data to show you that highest threat score up to the 100, who is the user with the highest anomaly. I take it, I'm looking at the Q&A session right now, and there are no questions. I hope it's clear. We're going to now, from these examples, jump into the architecture of LogPoint. And again, this is where our simplicity, our intuitiveness, our scalability comes into play. With LogPoint, you are able to deploy the LogPoint in multiple different ways without any extra charges to you. You look at the screen. In one of the screens, we talked about collector, storage, and analytics. This is a software image, and you can deploy it all in one unit. You can have a single unit that runs collector, that runs storage, and that runs analytics for you. That's all in one appliance. Then you can choose to break it down as you please. You could have a collector separate, collecting all the data. A collector's job is to collect, normalize, enrich, then route it for storage, and then put it for storage. You can have collector and storage in one location and analytics completely separate. You can have all three completely separate. Again, no additional charges. Your charges are the number of nodes sending us the log files. That's your license fee. You can have distributed collectors. You have 3 offices in London, Paris, Copenhagen. You have 3 collectors sending it to a centralized storage, and that's where you're conducting your analytics. Do that too. The only time we charge you an additional license is the last option, where it is an HA or high availability, where you decide for us to collect, normalize, and enrich the logs, and then make a copy of it for your DR suite, so that in case of emergencies, you've got a second copy, or it's an HA setup. That time there's an additional license. But other than that, any of the top 5 combinations, there's no additional charges. It is straightforward. Any questions? Well, I'm not seeing any open questions so far in the Q&A session or in the chat. We're going to move forward with this to explain about LogPoint and how serious we are about your data. When it comes to your data, we make sure we give it the highest priority to your data integrity. LogPoint are based out of Copenhagen, and we are the only European SIEM vendor. But not only that, we're the only one with EAL 3+ certification. What does that mean? Our product is, or our solution is developed to a standard that allows us to deal with financial organization, government organization, and defense. And we make sure that this certification stays correct and current. We have data privacy mode that I alluded to in one of my slides before. What it means in case you're dealing with sensitive information, for an example, credit card numbers. You can choose when that that log comes in, you can pick the field that has credit card number and encrypt it. Once encrypted, nobody can read that number. It's just a hash value. Administrator has the right to decrypt it on per request basis. If you have an audit and you want to make sure that the auditors have full access, you give them access for 2 days, 1 day, 1 week, and after that, the field gets re-encrypted. So we can encrypt your sensitive information upon receipt. When we receive the log file, we encrypt the sensitive information, so nobody has access to it. The encrypted data transport, we talked about in our previous slide that you can break down our components as per your requirement. As you grow, we grow with you. In that sense, when there is a communication between collector and storage or storage and analytics or in the reverse direction, all the traffic is encrypted. None of the traffic traveling between any of our components is open text. Also, our data is tamper-proof. What it means is when we receive a log file from any source, we associate a hash file with it, and then we make a copy and work with the copy. We do not touch the original log file. In case of audit, you're always able to produce the original log file with the hash value that proves that it's not been tampered with. Now comes to our UEBA. Our UEBA offering is cloud-based. So we send the data to the cloud engines because there are a lot of algorithms, a lot of models against which this data needs to run over the period of time. However, we never send user identifiable or machine identifiable data to our cloud. What we do is we encrypt those at LogPoint and only send the hash value. Our cloud never knows the identity of your machines or your users. They only know the hash value, run all the algorithms against the hash value, and if there is an anomaly, it gets sent back to your LogPoint. It decrypts the hash value and shows you if a user or entity has caused any anomaly. We ensure your data does not go into our cloud. There is a question. Are they all on-premise devices or are some cloud devices? Yes, John. It's a software solution. It depends on your choice. You could have, if I go to this previous slide, you can have collectors in cloud, collecting all the log files in the cloud, sending it to on-prem. You can have on-prem collectors and storage and analytics in the cloud. You can have all three in cloud. You could choose, because it's software only, you can choose to deploy it in platform of your choice. Hope that answers your question. Last but not the least is RBAC, making sure all parts of our solution, whether it's reports, dashboards, storage, or analytics, UEBA, everything has full RBAC. We give people controls or data access based on their roles. Moving on from here, I did say earlier that we have nearly 500 ingestion sources pre-built. Some of them are listed here. As you go through the screen, you will find some of the names that you are using in your network. I can't put all 500 here. The screen will be pretty much unreadable. But at LogPoint, we have a promise to our customers that if one of the products that you are using does not appear in our solution, and it is standard off-the-shelf solution, we will write normalizer for it free of charge. As long as it's publicly available, anyone can use this product. We will write normalizer free of charge because that will allow us to take our 500 to 600 to 700 normalizers. If you are using a particular bespoke solution that's been specially written for you, we will still write the normalizer for you, but because it then stays only with you, there will be some professional services involved. But as long as it's a standard product, we will write normalizer free of charge for any customer. Again, as you can see, we've only put certain names onto this particular slide, but there are nearly 500 ingestion sources pre-built within LogPoint. A quick touch point before we jump into SAP and the product demo itself, how the director works. We talked about director being manager of managers. The analyst team in the core or the HQ will sit and connect to Director Console or the Search Master, which will use a management fabric to connect to multiple LogPoint deployments. And again, these multiple LogPoint deployments could be all in one unit, or could be storage, analytics, and collection totally separate, or any combination that we showed. We could connect to all of them and manage it from a central location. This is particularly useful for larger customers who have deployment across the globe, and they want to keep all the log files locally, but still be able to access it from a single location. Now, I appreciate that not many of you use SAP, but I will quickly cover SAP to explain what we do with SAP and why it's important. And there's another example around SAP as well that I will come to, but this is something that I talked about earlier, was 77% of world's transaction revenue touches an SAP system. And that's a big point to say. You may just go ahead to your water company or electric company online and make a payment. You just spoke to your electric company, and that's that. In the background, what happened from the verification of you as a user with the electric company, with your card issuing company, and the permission that you have the credit limit to pay that bill and the confirmation that flies back, at some point, your transaction will touch an SAP system. And they are extremely important and business critical systems. It comes, and this is where I'd like to take you back to one of the examples that I gave you in correlation in the very beginning of Bob never entering the building. But if you use the same example here, just replace that Windows machine to the SAP machine. Now it becomes even bigger issue. Bob never entered the building, but he logged onto the SAP console first attempt. That becomes even bigger issue. I can change this into a hospital. There are X-ray machines and the technicians. The technician never entered the building, but he logged onto the X-ray machine first attempt. Unless you correlate these two completely separate logs on their own merit, they carry no value. On their own, they carry zero value. But unless you correlate the two, you don't see the problem that happens on your network. But with SAP, what happens is those users of SAP are completely devoted to SAP. They don't look at turnstile logs. They don't look at firewall logs. They don't look at VPN logs. We want to make sure that we take the SAP logs, understand the behavior of SAP logs, and correlate it with REST the logs coming in. We have pre-built reports pre-built measures, alerts for SAP systems that we can start using the moment you deploy this. And with LogPoint being very intuitive, very scalable, and very predictable, it is very, very quick to return to value. To bring you that return on investment, we are very quick. It takes on an average 5 days for us to be up and running and provide you that value. We have nearly 500 pre-built normalizers. We have plenty of reports, dashboards that are already pre-built. Once we start ingesting logs, we start building that lateral movement, we start building those timelines. Within 5 days, you will start seeing return on investment. You'll start seeing how quickly we can become operational. And yes, our licensing is very predictable. While other themes are based on EPS or events per second, we are based on the number of sources sending us the log files, and thus we are extremely predictable. Taking you back to my very first slide, that at LogPoint, we take great pride in these 3 core values: being intuitive, being scalable, being predictable. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. I will show you a quick demo of the product itself. But before I do that, any questions for me? Okay. As we look at the product, there might be more questions that you can ask away. What we're looking at in our solution right now, we've got the dashboards, searches on the top, report, incidents, and settings. I will give you a quick overview of what we can see straight out of the box, how we make sure that it not only remains flexible, but we expose the source of our knowledge. We don't show you an alert and say, just because we say so. There is a query behind it. There is a logic behind it, and we expose it all. The source of our knowledge is exposed. To show you what I mean, I'm looking at right now, this is Active Directory user account management. I can change what storage am I looking at. I can change all these widgets, we call them widgets. Just by clicking one, it's now filled up my screen. I can pick one, move it around. I can delete, I can change its appearance by clicking here and go, I want it area. Done. But also to expose our knowledge, there is a query that feeds this particular chart. There is a query. So we expose how we are showing you this information. Not just because we say so. This is what the query we ran, and this is the result. It shows you very quickly what the query is, how we feed this, and looking at these information. You can look at authentication and authorization, how many failed logins, how many users' accounts were locked out, top 10 users and failed login attempts from multiple locations. Now, this is something that concerns everybody. When you think about some guy is trying to log in from 10 different locations. How is that physically possible? What's happening? So if I were to click on one of them, add snow, I'm able to view logs. If I click it here, it will open it in this very window, but I don't want to lose my beautiful chart. So I'll go up here and open a new window. So it opens it a new tab for me. I found it wrote the query for me. I don't have to write this query. I found 5,580 logs relating to Ed Snow logging in from 10 different locations. Now, if you look at this log file itself, this here is the original log that we received, unnormalized log. This here is the normalized log. The label supplied to it is expire, fail, interactive, login, password, remote, and user. And without the knowledge of how to write the query, I can drill down. Remember this number, 5,580. He logged in from 10 different locations. These are the 10 different locations he logged in from. We pick up these interesting fields that keep on reappearing in every log. I thought, okay, this one looks strange IP address. I click on this, it gets added to my list. I don't have to do anything. Then I pick up the timeline. What was he doing between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m.? Done. He was in few different facilities. He was in building 5. Why was he there? Click on that. I've done all of 4 to 5 clicks. The query has written itself from 5,500 plus logs. You've come down to 3 logs. And that's how powerful LogPoint solution is. Not knowing this query language, I just clicked on few things that made sense, that were raising concerns, and that come down to 3 logs that caused the problems. And that's how powerful the solution is, making it intuitive. Click through. No, not this one. You already have our lovely dashboard open. Just click through. I looked at this, top 10 users in failed login attempts, clicked on his name, and I just clicked through from 5,558 logs to 3 logs. Be very intuitive, be very scalable. We look at MITRE attack surface. Those who don't know, MITRE is a non-profit American organization that writes up attack vectors, how someone can attack you. If you look at certain issues in your network, it could mean this, or it can mean this. They write both attack and defend. So if I were to look up MITRE, there is MITRE attack surface that you can have a quick check. It tells you about how people can attack your surface. And then once you know what kind of attack is being used, you can go for defend, which is MITRE's defend surface as well, how you defend against these as well. They are available online. MITRE is an open standard. You can give it a check. We plot all the log files that we receive. If we start seeing issues, we will start reporting it here against the MITRE's attack surface as well. Then this is all about picking up data, correlating data, and telling you what is happening in your network. For an example, we talked about common taxonomy. If I go to search, I don't know much about query language, but I know everything is got a device IP. So I put in device IP equals 10 dot star. 10 is my internal range. I want all the IP addresses starting with 10 in my network and what is happening. Sometimes we even start with just star. Show me all the logs, and I will click through. It's still loading. Right now, we are at nearly 300,000, 400,000 logs. When it stops, I think we should have around, 500,000 logs. Great, so we found 500,000 logs. When you start looking at these, you look at domains, what domain we found it in. LogPoint, LogPoint Bank. I'm interested in LogPoint Bank only. That takes you from 500,000 to 65,000. That's 90% gone, because that's what you were interested in. You come down to 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. That's when the problem happened in your network. You're down to 27,000. And you start looking here and you say, okay, how many users were there? These are the users, and these target Bob and target Henry were not the right, target Harry were not the right users. Click on it. No knowledge of writing the query and just clicking away to understand, being intuitive, bringing it down to 1,700 logs from 500,000 logs. That's how intuitive, simple, and powerful the solution is. Last thing that I wanted to show you before I stop is the UEBA. So far, what we have seen is correlation. We talked about Bob and him never entering the building. That was all correlation. Our UEBA is quite a powerful engine that sits in cloud, churns data, runs it against known algorithms, and finds you the anomalies. You'll find it up here, UEBA. So far, it has picked up or analyzed 114 million log files. 2,590 anomalies found, 3 risky ones. Who are the 3 risky ones? And our score is up to 100. So anything closer to 100 needs your attention. Anything closer to 0 or 10 does not need your attention. But you can come here and start looking at different users. I can choose to pick one of them, Henry Ford, and now I only see his activity. Here is the filter that automatically applied by clicking away. I can go here and I am interested in suspicious activity. I remove Henry Ford and now I'm looking across the board for suspicious activity. There you go. I found these 2 with suspicious activity. I can click on this plus symbol and start looking at incident names. I can add an incident just with this one particular user. I can look at what was this? This was in my PowerPoint slide as well, that he worked unusual hour for a shift pattern. You can click here and it will take you to the raw log files and show you these are the log files that we examined to give you this results. You can choose to remove this particular filter. What kind of anomalies are you looking for? Potential compromised account. Just click on one of them and now across all the users you start seeing it's very unusual that Ira Morris had a failed access attempt on a shared drive, file 29, having only had 1 day with failed attempts in this shared drive. You can start seeing it's extremely anomalous. We will start reporting this. You can start looking at raw events. This goes across not only users, but also entities. You'll start saying, okay, your camera system is talking to a different IP address this time rather than its usual server. You found a printer that has more outbound traffic than inbound traffic. This has never happened before. For a printer, its inbound will always outweigh the outbound. You always send print commands to it. It never sends anything out. Finding these kind of anomalies across your entities, users over a period of time, that's what UEBA is good at. Now, what I've shown you right now, there is further search, there are reports, compliance reports that you can run, there are incidents that you can log and resolve, but this is literally the tip of the iceberg. Quite a comprehensive solution, and of course, 1 hour will not do judgment to it, but I thought I'd give you a quick flavor of what LogPoint is capable of. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I'm going to stop here. Okay, as I see nobody's typing any questions for me, I'd like to take this time to thank everybody for joining and for the questions that I received in the chat and your time today. We will send you the recording of this presentation after the webinar is over. Thank you everyone for joining. Really appreciate your time.